Hello, welcome to Us Wargamer. I'm your host Rob. Today is the Age of Sigmar Stats Center, where we look at the event results from around the world. Don't forget, if you want to see actual stats, you can go on to honestwargamer.com and look at the actual stats produced by Ziggy and Rob, who are great people. We have 8 events being played across 5 countries with 245 players playing this weekend. Normally I record this on a Monday, but I'm recording it on a Wednesday instead, which is really throwing off my game. We had one of the biggest Age of Sigmar events in the UK recently, so that's really exciting. And then we're going to see events from all over the world. New Ogre book is in play. Not sure how it's going to do, actually. Probably not that well. Very much doubt that. And one of the things I've been thinking recently is I've barely seen any Stormdrake Guard on the top tables. I wonder if they're back. I don't know. We'll see. Let's find out. Let's go look at the event results. The first event that we're going to talk about today is War in the Heartlands, featuring over 100 people. Actually, England's biggest event in the past year since the last War in the Heartlands, which is quite exciting. So there must be something special at the event. Definitely not the rules knowledge of the TOs. So, War in the Heartlands, big, massive event, and we got 3 5-0s. This is from England, the UK scene, where predominantly most of the players don't cheat, which is exciting. So, in the 5-0 bracket, we got Mark Brooks, Dan Bradshaw, and Dan Arnold. Mark Brooks, Bosch, straight in. This is Mark's ever first 5-0 and Dan Arnold's first 5-0. Both members formerly or currently member of Team Wales. Absolute wonderful human beings. And then Dan, you've seen up here before with many 5-0s under his belt. So Mark Brooks, let's talk about his list, shall we? Mark was running a Nurgle list. I know what you're saying, Rob, I don't want to hear more about flies, but it isn't even flies. It's the Magakin Blessed Sons. It's got Blobe, Rotspawn, and Maggoth Lord, Orgoth's Demon Spew, and Maggoth Lord, and Morbidex Twice-Spawn for the 3rd Maggoth Lord. All 3 backed up by a great Unclean One, who's a general, with a Nurgling Infestation and the Witherstave for that 3-up. In range, you're going to take disease point, mortal wounds on a 3+ as opposed to a 4. All the Maggoth Lords are really fighty, and he's got Gutrot Spume, a pirate Nurgling warrior. What he's able to do is he's got a boat. There's no actual physical boat, but in your mind palace, go into your mind palace, there's a boat. In it, he can take up to 2 Maggoth Lords. They get on his boat, and then he arrives via the sea at the edge of the board, or deep strikes, if you're not a narrative person. And then can deposit them somewhere on the board. So even though like the front line looks pretty scary, he can take some of those off and then deep strike them, and that's quite cool. And then he's got 3 units of Rotmire Creed. Rotmire Creed are a shooting unit in the Nurgle army, and they're really, 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 really cool. They've got a lot of shots, which is quite nice against the right matchups, because sometimes you just want to give someone a load of save rolls. And then it also does disease points to the unit it hits on 6s and units around it. So you can put a lot of disease points out, which combos really nicely with the Witherstave, because then you're proccing even more mortal wounds and you just keep doing it. So that's quite fun. Those Rotmire Creed are also in Expert Conquerors as well. So yeah, congratulations to Mark. He's got to be super happy with that. I know it's his first 5-0. He's a wonderful dude, and I'm super, super happy for him. Because I know that he'll be a bit like, he's a very understated chap and he'll be very overwhelmed, but you can't be overwhelmed as an understated person, so I think maybe he just pauses, but I'm super happy for him, and he's been playing Warhammer a long time, and he's a lovely chap. Dan, running New Lumineth Realm Lords, was running Teclis, a Cathalar, 2 units of Wind Chargers, so units of 5, and then a unit of 10 Wardens, and then 40 Sentinels with the Umbral Spell Portal and the Rune of Petrification. The event did FAQ that Teclis knew all of the spell lore from the different spell laws as opposed to just one spell, as rules as written, even with the current one, but that's fine. And then he got a cute trick where he takes the Cathalar, he teleports the Cathalar with Teclis, and then uses Cathalar's once per game ability to, or is it once per game, once per turn, whatever it is, ability to cast the Rune of Petrification. You can't unbind it. So then you put the Rune of Petrification into your opponent's army, and then you just start doing mortal wounds, and someone can't stop you. You combine that, obviously, with the Spell Portal and Teclis being able to cast Searing White Light through it for the Technado, as is famously, if you don't know what the Technado is, just go back and watch the very first review of the very first Lumineth Realm Lords book, which was 7 books ago, And I'll tell you, it's fine. And then you've got some sentinels to do shooting from the back of the board, and then wind chargers. So, like, I guess the wind chargers are a new addition. It's in Helon, so if you get into melee it's not even in melee. If you get within 6 inches with the wind chargers to get an additional shot, and I think that might actually be the whole army, including the sentinels. Sentinels also do mortal wounds in combat now in addition. So they used to just do mortal wounds on their bows, but they do mortal wounds in addition in combat as well. So hopefully that gets FAQ'd because that's hilarious. So yeah, you get extra shots. So you can potentially have. I know. Listen, I know that you don't get an extra shot. I know that the champion has a lantern and not a bow, but for the purposes of just doing the math easy, there's like 40 shots in the list, but it's 38. So you could potentially double that and have that at whatever the fuck double that is. 70? No. 76? 76 shots. Doing mortals on 5s, right? So yeah, it's just the Sentinels get it 2, so they can speed a Heesh into 6 of something, then double tap anything on the board. It's pretty fun, says Greg in the chat. So there we go. So just shooting it off the board. So like, while I congratulate Dan on obviously using Helon and the wind chargers, or just the Helon thing, it's still just a list as ever it was. A Technado and some Sentinels is what's happening for the game. They shoot 30 inches as well. They've been dropped down to 24 inches, but if you're within 6 inches of a unit with a lantern, and they've both got lanterns, so you've got 2 units of 20, then it's still just 30 inches. So, and then they lost ignore line of sight, but no one can block. No one's gonna block it. So it's a Lumineth list. Yeah, that's how they work. And interesting that like we've got shooting in the first list, shooting in the second list, and then third list, Dan Arnold from downtown, sassy Dan Arnold. Dan's actually a Mormon, but he's a wonderful human being, great soul, and he was running Guard of Steel Soul in Hallow Knights. This is the 5-up ward bubble, which is really useful on the Stormdrake Guard. The Stormdrake Guard are obviously very, very good. Are they 9 wounds apiece, Stormdrake Guard? Not 11. I think the Knight Draconis is 11. So he's got Knight Draconis as the general. He's got the Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome. Really happy that stayed and didn't get FAQ'd out. And then the Mountrate Scintillating Trail. I honestly don't know what that does, but I think that might be Retreat and Charge. But he's obviously going to cast Thundershot, which is AoE damage. He's got all of the Knight Draconis can make the Stormdrake Guard shoot twice, once per battle. So he's going to make the 4 Stormdrake Guard shoot twice. The 2 Stormdrake Guard are going to shoot as well. And he's got a unit of Tree Revs and some Horrorghast. Yeah, -1 to your opponent's unbinds. Thank you. That's what it is. -1 to the unit's unbinds. So yeah, Stormdrake Guard. Someone said that, a couple of people actually, Lex, who I saw on Monday, said he's like, he felt like Stormdrake Guard were back because there were a lot at this event. But Stormdrake Guard have featured in pretty much every list that we've talked about with Stormcast over the past 6 months, or 18 months, since they came out, basically. I don't think they've ever gone away. I just think some of the players who have them don't necessarily play them that weekend, but they are very effective. If you wanted to go and play Stormcast right now and do really well with it, then I would pick up loads of Stormdrake Guard and think it would go there. Yeah, they're just crazy. So yeah, well done to Dan. And then, so those are all our 5-0s. Pretty exciting 5-0s, actually. And also, can we just talk about this nice variety? You've got Maggotkin, which are going to continue to be good because they've got a 5-up ward. But it's nice seeing something different with the Rotmire Creed. You've got Lumineth, which is the same book again, which is really funny. And then you've got Stormcast with Stormdrake Guard. So, like, the meta hasn't overly shifted in 18 months. People are going to talk about, like, severe swings, but not really. Like those lists that did well 18 months ago are doing well now. It's pretty interesting. No, obviously not the Nurgle one. Since the Nurgle book came out, sorry, I should be more clear. But yeah, they've been, since launch, those lists have been doing well. Also, pointed out by the chat, so it's worth adding on, all 3 armies have got a 5+ ward. Now, I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but there's a really good video that me and my friend Mr. Colonel Cabbage, or Charlie, did when we talked about the the universal artifact that gives a 5-up ward, or used to give a 5-up ward, that was taken all the time. There's a really good YouTube video on it. I'll include it in the show notes, and I'll also put a link somewhere up here for you to click. The Amulet of Destiny, that's what it was. Okay, let's take a look at the 4-1s. A veritable who's who and a smorgasbord of different armies. In the 4-1 bracket, or the 4 in a draw, specifically Mr. Simon Weekly with his Nighthaunt and his Hexwraith spam. We've seen this played between a couple of different people before, so it's just a load of Hexwraiths, and I mean a bucket load of them. I think it's 45 Hexwraiths in the army. Just runs forward, pins you in, you can't get out. It's got a 4-up unrenderable save, moves over you, does some attacks. That's the Nighthaunt list. Jack Armstrong was running some Stormcast Eternal Dragons, taking advantage of the cheaper Vanquishers now to be able to take 2 units of 4 Stormdrake Guard in his list. Phil Marshall was running Old Slaves to Darkness book, but another 4-1 for Big Phil. The wonderful Greg was again using dragons and also some long strikes. So some Stormdrake Guard again. Wonderful, wonderful Greg. Mike Stewart with a list you could have written 2 years ago with his Seraphon, double Bastillodon with Solar Beam, and a bunch of skinks in Thunder Lizard with some skink priests. Max Barton was running Nurgle Flies in Drowned Men. Richie was running a bunch of Magma Droths, so he's running a Rune Father and 3 Rune Sons, and a bunch of like foot dudes as well. So that's a very good list, and again, very viable. I think that's a very viable list. Craig Navmar was going all in, 3 units of 6 Enlightened, and a unit of 6 Skyfires, and some other stuff in Beasts of Chaos, making use of that 4+ rally. Hazel was running that's right, she was running an Incarnate list. Hazel, so far, our only Incarnate list in play. Steve Follows was running double Ironclad and the Purple Sun Kharadron Overlords list. So Purple Sun into your opponent's line, boats down, do all the shots. Freddie is easily the most interesting list from this week. He's running 2 units of 6 Paladors in his list. So those are Stormcast Eternals. In Cities of Sigmar, he was playing in Hallowheart, Battle Mage, Hurricaneum, a Free Guild General, a unit of Demigryph Knights, 2 units of 10 Free Guild Crossbowmen, a unit of reinforced Free Guild Outriders, and the Enderspell Horrorghast. It's a shooting list that does a lot of damage at range. It's got the Warding Brand, so if you do start killing the Paladors, as an example, what they're going to do is dish mortal wounds back, so they play a little bit like the Magma Droth list as well. Again, it's a very Freddy list, quite unique. Freddy's been one of the few people in the world running Paladors and running them to massive success. He also won Best Sports with his list as well. So a unique list, Best Sports, doing 4-1. Is he, like, you just hope he's a bad kisser, because he's nailed everything else. That's all you got to say. Mr. Owen Jackson, the man, the myth, the legend, fresh off a 5-0 with his new 4-1 with his Reign of Stars list, which is very much the Owen Jackson TM build now. So well done to him with the Fast Riders. I think that puts Owen on potentially, like, from Reign of Stars, he's done 3 4-1s and a 5-0 in a row. It's pretty phenomenal stuff, really, for what is objectively a meme list. Solomon Morrow, our youngest member, I think, of the 4-1 bracket here, and all the way over from Northern Ireland, was running Scarlet Doom with loads of Blade Geist Revenants doing the mortal wounds on when you charge in. Well done, Solomon. He'd be super proud of himself. He's great. And yeah, looks like a really great event. There was some cool cameo stuff announcing the battle plans and things. It's over in Leicester, which is not a good place. But other than that, I hope everyone had a lovely time, and on to the next event. Our next event is over in Canada, and it was called the 5 Alarm GT. This was a 22-person event held in British Columbia, specifically here at the Sparwood Fire Hall. It's a very small, remote part of Canada, so getting 22 players is actually really cool. And it was an event being run for charity, where they were able to raise over £1,000 for a cystic fibrosis charity. So that's just really excellent and really great. It was organised by Dayton from Party of the Old Points. He also won the event, which is great and hilarious all at the same time. He was playing Marathian the Bowsnakes and got 4 wins and a draw. Then Nick Fortin was using the new Zinch book, and he was running Daughters of Cain. Not Daughters of Cain, he wasn't running that, he was running Zinch, like I just said. And he was running Guild of Summoners, He was running Guild of Summoners, and he had a Curseling, a Fluxmaster, a Lord of Change, Kairos, a Zangor Shaman, and a Magister. Then he had 3 lots of Carrick Acolytes as battle line, and he had Burning Sigil, Chronomantic Cogs, and Umbral Spell Portal. So this is the sub-faction where you can only summon a Lord of Change. And he already had 2 on the board. He had Kairos and a Lord of Change. So then he's just summoning more Lords of Change. He should be able to get up an insane amount of fate points from this army. He's got a load of spells, so he probably gets close to 15 to 20 fate points, which are the summoning points, per turn in his hero phase, which means he's able to put a load of Lords of Change out. I don't know how many Lords of Change even has, but that's a lot. He's going to put on, because the first one that you summon is on a 9, but you can only summon Lords of Change in Guild of Summoners, so hilarious stuff. And then when it's not doing that, it's an 18-inch kill box and it's doing loads of mortal wounds. Okay, let's go look at the 4-1s. Okay, just looking at the 4-1s, we've got Carl Ong, who did really well with his Kharadron Overlords recently. He's from the Tough Crowd gaming group, and he took his KO list with Gotrek and an Ironclad and some Thunderers in his list as well. Pretty much all KO lists are the same. There's an Ironclad, but putting Gotrek in there is super fun. Really like that. Calvin Osterdahl was running Seraphon Thunder Lizard. He's representing Team Badgers, and he was running a Engine of the Gods, obviously, an Old Blood, a Scarvet, a Skink Priest, and a Slan. Then he had 2 units of 10 Knights, Saurus Knights, which is cool. It's nice to see. And unit of 5 Saurus Guard, and then the Stegodon with the Sky Streak Bow. I mean, it's in Thunder Lizard. It doesn't need much explaining. And then a very cool Heathen Knights of Sinestro list also went 4-1. With Sinessa, Sigvald, and Be'lakor. Be'lakor for shutting down the opposing army. Sigvald for just smashing stuff, and Sinessa for just looking really pretty. Love that. And then 2 units of 11 Blitzbarb Archers, 5 Hellstriders, and then 2 units of Simbramesh Twin Souls, and then the Geminids of Ulguish. You see the Geminids a lot in these lists, because what they do is they do mortal wounds in like an aura, basically, to their own army, and then they generate summoning points. So depending on how much you can ramp up the summoning for this army, it can do really well, especially because the Blitzbarb Archers can do damage to different units, because they can split their shots. So then he's going to end up with doing damage to like lots of units and therefore getting even more summoning points. So just super cool. Love to see it. Hope everyone had a great time. Congratulations to the event for raising so much money for charity as well at the same time. Super proud of them, and I hope they had a really cool time. Right, the next event is in Western Australia. It took place in Perth and was part of kind of a Masters series. There was 4 qualifying events, which led to our 16 players. There were meant to be 20, but a few dropped out, playing at Battlemaster. So the most dangerous and scary and competent Age of Sigmar players in the whole of Western Australia. And it was won by Mr. Matt Trown. Now, Matt has got a YouTube channel called Age of Something, where he makes very funny, hand-drawn YouTube videos about Age of Sigmar, and you should go check them out. They're excellent. And he also ran a really cool Stormcast Eternal list, which is quite different to what we've seen previously. It was Hammers of Sigmar, and he got a Lord Celestin on Stardrake with the command trait Master of the Celestial Menagerie, the Drake Scale Armor, and his Scintillating Tray or Mount trait. Then he had a Celestant Prime, which is fairly common, but then a Lord Arcanum, which isn't very common at all, with Celestial Blades. Then he had 2 lots of 2 Dracothian Guard Tempestors as battle line, and a unit of Vanquishers. Then 6 Gryph-hounds, 3 Praetors, and then an allied-in unit of Auralan Sentinels and the Quicksilver Swords. So the Quicksilver Swords obviously could do mortal wounds at range. He's got the shooting coming out of the Tempestors and the Celestant Prime and the Star Drake. He's backed that up with some Sentinel shooting as well. Just really cool stuff. Stuff you don't see anywhere ever. And he was able to take it out, which is really great and really excellent. Blake Jervis and James Panek were the other 2 people that went 4-1 at this event. Blake was running Stormcast Eternal's Hallowed Knights, which was, I'm pretty certain, it was 4 Stormdrake Guard, 2 Stormdrake Guard, 2 lots of 2 Stormdrake Guard, and a Knight Draconis. And then James was running 4 Stormdrake Guard, Gotrek, and also Gardas, or maybe Bastion or something like that in his list as well, which is really cool. I really like these events where you have a bunch of like feeder events leading into this big kind of like Masters event, because then you end up with feeling like the players deserve their place where they are. And then it probably feels like it's the best of the best. And then to come out on top of that has got to be like this extra big thing. So a massive shout out to Matt. Super proud of him, and just peace and love. Our next event is the Gourds of War, happening in Utah in America and had 18 players playing. It was won by Dustin Chesma, who's running Lumineth Realm Lords. He had a nice little list here. He had Severith, for obviously all the shooting and little tricks that Severith can bring to the table. A Cathalar, a Light of Altharion, great duelist little character, and a Venari Lord Regent. Then he had a unit of Wardens, a unit of 10, 2 units of 10 Wardens, 30 Sentinels, a unit of Blade Lords, 2 units of Dawn Riders in his list as well. So like a nice mixture of stuff, which I thought was really cool. The Dawn Riders were bounty hunters, which makes lots of sense to get extra attacks into infantry, and therefore making them bounty hunters is like a double down in their utility and usefulness. You don't tend to see Dawn Riders a lot, so I quite like that as well. Blade Lords being situational and useful. And then quite a cast of characters. Light of Altharion being able to be actually aggro and go forward is quite cool. I really like that. And then the backup wizards on the Cathalar and the Regent, which is fun. The 2-4-1s were Aaron Daly with a Soulblight Gravelords list and Andrew Butler with a Khorne list. Aaron was running Nagash and a White King on Skeletal Steed as the general. That did get cheaper in the Battle Scroll update, actually. And he had the command trait Rousing Commander and the Artifact Fragment of the Keep because he's in Castelli Dynasty. All of that is buffs for giving the Blood Knights extra damage. So the 3 units of 5 Blood Knights are going to be really powerful once per battle with the Rousing Commander ability, or it's Fragment of the Keep. One of the two gives the extra damage. And then 2 units of 10 Death Rattle Skeletons, Umbral Spell Portal, and Purple Sun. So the Umbral Spell Portal obviously is really good for Hand of Dust on Nagash. And the Purple Sun for reducing reducing save is actually going to be really, really, really useful, especially with those Blood Knights, because then you're going to be at Rend 3 on the charge and do a lot of damage, which I think is really cool. So I really like that. Really fun list. Then our Khorne list had 2 Bloodthirsters, 2 Boomthirsters, a Scarbrand, a Bloodsecrator, a Slaughter Priest, and a ton of Bloodletters. Well, 3 units of 10 Bloodletters. And then Karnak in his list as well. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm pretty certain the whole purpose of the Khorne list is to push Scarbrand around. But having 2 Boomthirsters to do some additional damage as well means that you get loads of mortal wounds, which is really fun. Love that. Super fun. Shout out to everyone on YouTube. The next event we're looking at is the Southern Smash GT in Adelaide. So this was a 6-round event featuring 25 players, which is cool. So 25 players. So we're just going to look at the 6 O's and 5 1s. So Nick Palmrose went 6-0 with his Daughters of Cain list. And it's a really, really cool list. He's got 2 High Gladiatrixes, a Bloodrat Shrine, a Slaughter Queen, and a Hag Queen, and then a Hag Queen and Cauldron of Blood. So no Morathi. Already fantastic. This is all in Drychi Ganeth. And then he had 2 units of 30 Witch Elves, a unit of Sisters of Slaughter, and then 2 Canary Heartrender units, and a Heart of Fury, which is the Invocation. So as we talked about previously on the show, at one of the other stat centers, the Slaughter Queen's going to be, the High Gladiatrixes can make it so the Witch Elves basically are on 2s and 2s to hit and to wound, which is just like amazing output from these units. And they can just blend stuff out, and they're only 345 points. You stick that in with the Zealous Orator command trait, so you can rally on a 4+, and that's on the Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood, so that's much more mobile, and it's going to go forward. And the Cauldron of Bloods are genuinely great smash pieces in of themselves. They'll be following up the Sisters of Slaughter with the Witch Elves or the Sisters of Slaughter with the Blood Shield as well, for giving them the extra saves. So it's a really interesting and unique list. It's also really good on the primary, unlike a lot of the Daughters of Cain list, because instead of being a castle at the back of the board, it's actually a very aggressive, aggro, forward-moving army. I think it's a really cool list, and Nick should be super chuffed with himself, so congratulations to him. Then in second place is Kron. Now, Kron, a former member of Team Australia and normally a KO expert, has moved on to Tzeentch, and this is a summoning build. So he's taking Host Arcanum for an auto unbind on turns 1, 3, and 5, and you can also have Screamers as battle line. Then he's got a Flux Master, and he's got the artifact to power the Eternal Shroud. It's actually one of my favourite artifacts for Tzeentch, because you get to recycle Destiny Dice on a 5+. He's got a Magister, a Be'lakor to shut down the opposing army, and Be'lakor still works really well in this army because it's a 2-cast wizard, and 2-cast wizards are actually quite rare in this army. Kairos, the Changeling, and the Curseling. So the Changeling also a cheap 2-cast wizard. Curseling, another 2-cast wizard. So the Magister has got the Arcane Tome, so it goes up to being a 2-cast wizard, and is a general with Cult Demagogue. So he's casting in total the Fluxmaster spell, which has got the potential to generate, like, on average, about four fate points for summoning. Then Magister for an additional 2. Be'lakor for an additional 2. So that already takes us up to 8. Kairos for an additional 3 for 11. The Changeling takes us up to 13. And then the Curseling takes us up to 15. The Karakakalites count as wizards, and they get to cast a spell to improve their Sorcerer's Bolts. If you cast all of those, then you're going to be on 18. And then he's got the Endless Spells, Umbral Spell Portal for being able to do spells at range, specifically the Fluxmaster spell. Chronomantic Kogsu is going to be re-rolling all those casts, and Kairos is going to be providing +1 to cast for all those wizards. And then the Demonic Simulacrum, which is just to fly around and do mortal wounds. I personally prefer the Burning Sigil, but each their own. He did really well with this. It went 5-1. So yeah, just absolutely excellent. Congratulations to him. And then we got a load of 4-1s. Nicholas Zambo with Iron Jaws. 4-2s. Nicholas Zambo with Iron Jaws. Wayne Buck with Soulblight Gravelords. Adam Williamson with Seraphon. James Beale with Stormcast. Lawrence Crowter with Flesh Eaters. And then the big shout out goes to Jacob Bondarenko with Gloomspite Gitz going 4-2. Absolutely excellent. He was playing Gloomspite Gitz, and he had a Dank Hold Trag Boss with the Master of Magic and the Arcane Tome, a Loom Boss on Mangler Squigs, 2 Fungoid Cave Shamans and a Madcap Shaman, 2 units of 3 Fell Water Troggoths, 9 Rotgut Troggoths, 3 Rotgut Troggoths, and some Stabbers, and then a unit of Squig Herd in his list as well. Really cool. Love to hear it. Jacob actually in the chat as we're recording this. We've asked him if Gits are back, and he said Gits never went away. He said they're the top army of 1. And so, congratulations to him and everyone at this event. Our next event is in New South Wales, in Australia again. So, 3 events in Australia this weekend, which is awesome. Love seeing that. And this was won by Thomas Oliver with his Maggotkin of Nurgle Drowned Men. He was running a lot of afflictions in Drowned Men, as obviously, with Be'lakor for shutting down the opponent's ability to do stuff. 3 units of 2 Puskil Blightlords, a unit of 4 Puskil Blightlords, some Plague Bearers, all in a battle regiment. Okay, pre-game move, block your opponent in, make it so that Be'lakor shuts down when you're opposing units like key pieces, maybe for 2 turns, win. That's what he did. Congratulations to him. Really solid list. Mitch Bug was running Sylvaneth. He was running Heartwood. He had a Lariel, a Spirit of Durthu, some Tree Revenants, and some Spite Rider Lancers. All in 6 Spite Rider Lancers specifically, all in a battle reg. I really like the Spite Rider Lancers when they aren't trying to be... I like the Lancers, and the Bugs, specifically because I think they do what the Kurnoth Hunters and some of the other units have tried to do with teleports, but instead they're just doing it with their base movement, which is very excellent. Flying across the board, doing loads of damage, and then striking and fading back, which ties in really nicely with things like Alariel doing something similar, which I think is cool. So yeah, I love that. I think that's great. We had Liam Burnett Blue running Daughters of Cain in his... so it's nice to see Liam back on the tables. Liam used to play a lot. It's great to have one of the emo twins back. He was running Xanthikai with a Bloodrat Medusa, Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood, Hag Queen, and then Anointed on Frostheart Phoenix. And then 10 Bloodstalkers, 15 Blood Sisters, and then 10 Witch Elves, and then 2 units of 5 Heartrenders and the Heart of Fury. So he does have 10 bow snakes, but he has no Marathi to make him shoot twice, and instead he's got like a -1 to wound aura coming from the Anointed on Frostheart Phoenix, which is quite a cool little trick. Then he's got some fighty snakes, and then he's got some witch elves as well. So I quite like this list. It's got a variety of different like combat pieces, all backed up by the -1 to wound from the Frostheart Phoenix, which is quite cool. Really, really fun. I like that. I think that's really clever. And then Yanks Pang, I apologise that I've definitely got that wrong. Yanhi Pang is running Stormcast Eternals and Hammers of Sigmar. Now, he was running Hammers of Sigmar as a sub-faction, and he had Lord Relictor, and then 4 Nightfall X's and Vexillors and a Night Heralder. And then 2 units of Skybolt Bows from Adjudicators, 2 units of Dracothian Guard Tempestors, and then a unit of 2 Stormdrake Guard, and then the Everblaze Comet. Love this list. This is the AoE damage list. So the Knight Vexilla has got a banner that once per battle you can do AoE in range of a single point. You can do it multiple times. He's doing it 4 times. He's then got a Knight Heralder and is picking a terrain piece and also blowing that up, which is really great. Absolutely love that tech as well. I think also he's using the the Lord Relictor to teleport the Heralder to do it. Then he's shooting you with Skybolt Bows and Tempestors. He's also casting Everblaze Comet for doing mortal wounds in AoE. And then he's yeeting over some Stormdrake Guard. Oh my god. Absolutely love that list. That's fantastic. Shout out to Yan Hu Pang. That's great. We've seen this played before by JJ up in Scotland. This is just like the AoE bomb list, and it's so funny. Like, just really good. Love that list. Great work. And shout out to everyone in New South Wales. Our next event is the Small Town Throwdown, the Nujvember Hoedown. Now, this has already been something that you've seen discussed online, I assume, because of the event results. The new Ogre book was allowed in play at the event. The organisers decided to let it in play, which was the first weekend we saw some of those lists in action, and they did very well. Now, we did discuss this on the Monday night show, and you can go back and watch this game, or one of these lists specifically play, on the T Sports Network YouTube channel or on our Twitch channel on the VOD, and you can watch them play. Because there's a new menace in town, and its name is 40 Noblars. So Tom Guan won the event with his Ogre Mawtribes Underguts army. As I understand it, Tom didn't ever play more than 3 turns of Age of Sigmar in any of his games. He beat a Grin and Blades list. Oh, no, he didn't beat that. No, but he beat a variety of lists anyway. What's in the list? Well, there are 4 Iron Blasters, mainly support pieces, back of the board, do a bit of chip damage. There are 3 units of 4 Lead Belchers, which, because they don't move, will get an additional D3 shots on their D3 shots anyway. They're all in the Undergut sub-faction, so both the Iron Blaster and the Lead Belchers get +1 to their Rend. So Rend 3 or Rend 2 on the Iron Blaster, and then Rend 2 on the Lead Belchers. There was a Butcher General, which had a command trait which made units within, Noblar units wholly within 12 inches immune to Battle Shock. And this is where we talk about the power piece. There was a unit of Noblars, well, 2 units of 20 specifically, and those 2 units of 20 Noblar are really, really good because when you move within range of them, then on a 4+ you take D3 mortal wounds, and they're a really good screen, and 20 wounds for 100 points is really effective. Then, lastly, but not leastly, is the Stonehorn. The Stonehorn is -1 to wound, and is just got that new monstrous action. We'll just do some. This is the new Ogre book, yeah, and it's going to do so much damage. It's amazing because it's going to charge in, do mortal wounds. It's then going to do its monstrous action and do mortal wounds. It's going to be somewhere on the board you weren't expecting it to be when it did charge, and it can clear itself its own screen by doing mortal wound impact hits, wiping out a bit of a screen, and then moving after, and then it gets to a pile-in. It's very possible that when a Stonehorn charges, wherever it charged, after it's done its monstrous action and its pile-in, it's 21 inches somewhere else. That's crazy. That's crazy. It just goes all over. So you have the Stonehorn doing as a great counterpunch piece if you charge this castle, this shooting castle. The Noblars, anytime you make a move, charge move, or pile-in move, right now, before an FAQ, on a 4+ you take D3 mortal wounds, which can be significant. Then you're taking either 8 shots that do D3 +3 damage at Rend 3 at up to 30 inches from the Iron Blasters, or 40 shots that are 3s and 3s Rend 2 damage 2 if you're within 12 inches. Finally, the spell on the Butcher is called Blubber Grub Stench, and when you cast it, you just become a big meaty boy. No, when you cast it, Rhinox units, which will be your Iron Blasters, within 12 inches become monsters for the purposes of charging and holding objectives. So they count as 10 on an objective each, and they also do a load of damage when they charge in. So they're just very, very effective. Again, I encourage you to go and watch the discussion, the match on the T Sports Network YouTube, and there's also an interview with Tob where he discussed his winning list. So you can go do that there. The rest of the lists, well, there are two ogre lists as well. Ian McLeese was running an ogre more tribes list. He only went 4-1. His version of the ogre list only contained 3 iron blasters, some iron guts, and some lead belchers. But there were 2 units of noblars, really showcasing that it's the noblars that are the power in this army. Alec Jerome was running Maggotkin of Nurgle, and he was running Drowned Men, and he was running a bunch of Puskal Blight Lords. Taryn Burke was running a Blaze of Corn list, which was quite cool. There was some fun stuff in here. Specifically, he had some Mighty Skull Crushers in his list, which are quite a cool unit for 165 points. They're 5 wounds apiece on a 3-up armor save. They just don't really necessarily have the output that you would expect from such a large model. So they're kind of in that like Varangard Fulminator category. And while they've got that survivability, they don't have the damage output to match them. He does have the Mindstealer Spharanx in his list as well to make stuff fight last. Unless this is the new book, in which case that's quite interesting. Then he also has got Scarbrand in his list. And I think all of these lists at the moment are just waiting for Scarbrand to just yeet stuff off the board. So just absolutely brilliant stuff. Then you've got Samuel Valdez, and he was also running Ogre More Tribes. And I know what you're asking, Rob. Were there any Noblars in this? There were none. But there were 4 Iron Blasters, support Iron Blasters. And then there was a unit of 4 and 2 units of 2 Mournfang Pack, a Butcher, and a Frostlord on Stonehorn. Something I should have actually mentioned about Tom Quad's list as well, so the 5-0 list, is he took the artifact, the Gruesome Trophy Rack, and this is units wholly within 12 inches get +1 to hit against monsters or heroes. So that makes the shooting that comes from the Iron Blasters or even the Lead Belchers even more effective if you're shooting into heroes and monsters, which is pretty good and pretty scary. Then you had Chris Daltrey with Ironeth Deepkin list in Nautilar, which means he had a big old turtle, which I loved. Lotan, Achillean King, 6 Morsar Guard, 40 Reavers, and a Leviathan with 3 Aether Wings. I was really hoping this would get matched up into one of the Iron Blasters list, but it lost to the Tzeentch list, or it looks like it did, looking at BCP. So it's a bit of a shame, because I would like to know how Ironeth Deep can do into those lists, but we'll see. I know for a fact that one of the Ogre lists beat a Grinning Blades list, so that shut it down pretty significantly. And you can't see Grinning Blades units outside of 12 inches, therefore it's not really the counter we necessarily maybe think it is. And then finally, Greg Brewer. Greg played in the final on the T Sports Network Twitch stream, which you can go check out, and he was just a delight. What a delightful man. 2 units of 6 Gore Grunters, 2 units of 3 Gore Grunters, 2 War Chanters, and also a Mega Boss of Maw Crusher. Lost his last game by getting absolutely lifted in a single turn in the shooting phase. So yeah, just amazing stuff. Wrapping the show up, interesting set of results. Now, there is one more event result from the weekend which we haven't covered. I don't think I got sent the information, or I was, but I haven't put it on the screen, so one of those two. But either way, it was our man Dom, played at an event down in England this weekend, running a bunch of trogs. It was actually one of the first and best Gloomspite Gits lists I've seen win. It went 5-0, and he won Best Sports. So I'm going to actually ask Dom on the show to actually discuss it, because it's just such a cool list. He's such a great guy, and I don't want to do it poor justice, basically, because it's just fantastic, and he deserves to talk about it, because it's just really cool. So yeah, a bunch of trogs went 5-0, and I think there was a Skitstrand Ragnarok in the list as well, and won Best Sports. So you've got to really wonder who that person is and what they're doing. So we'll discuss that. But just know that it happened, and it's fantastic. Other stuff from the weekend, I guess we're talking about how good Stormcast are, right? There's loads of them. They're everywhere. But they haven't really ever gone away. They've always been in the background. I don't think it's a meta shift. I don't think there's anything special or different that's happened recently. Don't think the Battle Scroll has made any particular changes, other than the fact that if you take the Vanquishers, you can take those 2 units of 4 Stormdrake Guard. They're just smashy, powerful, especially good in Bounty Hunters, and just really, really effective. I'd say maybe some of their natural predators have gone away. Nighthaunt maybe, because they can reduce their saves quite well. But either way, I think that they're very good, and obviously I've read them out a lot. The main takeaway though from this weekend, and I think probably the point of discussion for a while is going to be whether or not those ogres are good or too good. A heavy shooting meta, we did see a lot of lists do quite well early when we looked at War in the Heartlands, can be quite problematic. Sentinels kind of made some armies not play particularly well. One of the things that we've seen over the past few months is Khorne being really effective in games because there's been less shooting. So people haven't just lost Scarbrand on the first turn and they've had the opportunity to push in the middle. Sure, long strikes have still existed. Sure, Marathi and the Bowsnakes have still existed. They've only ever hit like about 5% of the meta. And even then, that's all of the Daughters of Cain lists. They weren't all shooting lists. KO have made a big comeback as well over the past like 3 months. So there is a lot of shooting in the game. So are Iron Blasters okay with all the shooting that we currently have? I guess that's a real question, and I guess we don't really know that the answer. I guess we don't really know the answer right now. Maybe there's some counters, maybe there's some new builds. I'm not really sure, but we know Stormcast are still very popular. Loads of different builds as well. Valexa build, a bunch of other stuff. Obviously, a lot of Stormdrake Guard. So seeing those different plays, a Stardrake build from Age of Something over in Western Australia was really fun with the Praetors. And I know that there's a bunch of people that want to run Praetors with like Krondis as well. So there's a lot to play here, and we still did see a load of other factions doing well. So yeah, loads of fun. Looking forward to finding out how these new books do, like your big Slaves to Darkness plays and all those other things. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do on the tabletop as well. Now we've had the kind of first like little inkling of the ogre, and I'm looking forward to it. So I hope you had a nice weekend. If you did play, I hope you're having a great weekend if you're going to play. And if you're not, I still hope you're doing well being, that's right, tabletop sports fans. Okay? Because you enjoy playing or watching tabletop sports. That's all it is. Have a nice day. See you soon.